Welcome back to the Pod of Greed.
Welcome back for another week. This is episode 71. Can you believe that?
That's insane. I don't think I've ever done anything 71 times like straight before.
Yeah,
well, except for that one Saturday night, but that's a different thing.
Well, yeah, I don't know what to respond to that with. But this week we've got a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh news, of course. That's kind of how it goes around here. This has been a particularly exciting past week because of YGO Worlds.
So. World Championship, baby.
Yeah. In addition to that, of course, we have a review to start us off. And we'd like to remind you, if you're listening to the premiere on YouTube, press 1 in the chat.
Premiere gang, one's up.
And also remember to like the video, even if you're just lurking or whatever. It helps out quite a bit. Okay, so this review comes to us from Kaiba Corp Desk Jockey. That's this person.
These names are getting better and better.
So this person actually has a review and a question as well. So we'll be doing a bit of a question at the start.
Okay, double duty.
Amazing podcast for my work mornings. Hey guys, I love the podcast and I've been listening since February of this year, and it's been a great addition to my weekly work life. It's nice to hear you guys' opinions, not just about Yu-Gi-Oh, but interesting news, movies, and the latest Pokemon crimes. There's always a Pokemon
news. Team APS.
I do have a question. People always compare Yu-Gi-Oh to Pokemon, and rightfully so. I know the collecting part of the Pokemon brand is a huge part of the game, but I feel Yu-Gi-Oh also has that appeal and is never talked about in the same context. I feel Konami knows this, and that's why they always release DM and other nostalgia support. I feel a huge part of the community resents this practice of printing cards for fan-favorite archetypes like Blue Eyes, Heroes, Dark Magician, etc., but in the Pokemon TCG, it's celebrated. My question is, do you think Konami is poorly communicating this aspect of the brand to their audience, or is the Yu-Gi-Oh community just ready to move on from what Yu-Gi-Oh used to be? Some people say it's because the Yu-Gi-Oh community is too competitive, but compared to other TCG's prize support, I feel that argument falls flat. Why just focus on the competition of the game and not the love of the IP? Pokemon, who has better rewards for competition, can balance both, so why can't Yu-Gi-Oh? Thanks again, and please keep pumping out more episodes of the pod. They gave us 5 stars.
First off, we appreciate that. We really do.
Yeah, thanks. It's always nice to get a positive, glowing review, but this is a pretty interesting question.
This is a loaded question. Like, this is a loaded potato.
It's funny when we get these sort of a loaded potato, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm a little hungry.
Loaded grits. I like loaded grits. Those are good.
Oh, you know you from the South.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny when we get these questions because these are always, I'm glad we do this because this is stuff that we talk about this stuff so much
all the
off
time.
Camera. And I'm always just like, man, here we are just talking about this. I guess no one will ever really know. I mean, what do you think about this? Like,
so the short answer is Konami. But that's a very complex answer, even though it sounds simple because there's Konami US, there's Konami Japan, and never the two shall meet, seemingly. Yeah. But the Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon are often compared, and you're right, rightfully so. They were huge properties in the 90s, early 2000s. But Pokemon is already viewed as this retro collector's item that like you and everybody wants to get their hands on, right? Yeah. But Yu-Gi-Oh, for some reason, it's really not looked at in the same way, even though these things, Pokemon cards are not that much older than Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yeah, they're certainly not that much different. I think for me, where my head goes is just that like with Pokemon, I think it's a matter of like, it's a creatures game. So like it's about like cute critters, and everybody kind of has their favorite Pokemon or what their kind of ideal team of Pokemon would be. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that is the answer to what you were posing. That's
Tyranitar is the answer to everything.
Favorite Pokemon, yes.
Right? Everyone's favorite. Yeah. No, but so I think like Yu-Gi-Oh maybe didn't do quite as good of a job at making some of its iconic monsters be super lasting. Like there are some, like don't get me wrong. There's Karibo,
a lot of them are just
Time Wizard and stuff. But a lot of monsters are they're less memorable in like that collectors-y way.
I think it's because Yu-Gi-Oh, unlike Pokemon, where Pikachu is in every single series of Pokemon and has been alongside Ash since the beginning, Yu-Gi-Oh does these kind of refreshes, whether it's from even in DM, right? Yugi's deck changes significantly between Battle City and Duelist Kingdom. Where he's like, you still see the Dark Magician, but a lot of his deck is completely different in Battle City. And then you move on to the other series like GX and so on, where now none of what we've seen before is in it anymore. So you lose that.
But see, here's my argument would be that like Ash's team changed. Like if we're talking like anime to anime, like Ash changed Pokemon.
Didn't.
Yeah, but like Dark Magician always stayed.
Not in every series though.
I guess that's true. Yeah,
and then Dark Magician's kind of a guy. Like, not even really a monster.
That's the creatures part. It's like Pokemon are like cute animals, whereas like Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters are like monsters / people / sort of creatures.
If in every iteration of Yu-Gi-Oh! If Yugi's original deck somehow just got an upgrade and got carried through somehow, like what if Beaver Warrior was in GX?
Was still,
not too crazy. But what if Beaver Warrior found his way to 5Ds?
Okay, actually, let's move on to the other part of the question because I think that's probably more the crux of what he's getting at. Is like the printing of nostalgia support in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is seen as kind of a bad thing, or at least in some sectors of the community.
People, yeah.
Whereas in Pokemon, it's not. My slight rebuttal to that, though, would be like there are a lot of people who hate the Gen 1 Pokemon like spam.
Yeah.
Where like that's the only Pokemon that really ever get mainstream merchandise, and they're always like shown in ads and collaborations and products and stuff. So I mean, I've heard, like I've felt and heard that same negative sentiment towards it from Pokemon fans as well. But I think with the Yu-Gi-Oh community, it's just the people that are angry at DM support. There's like two camps of them. There's the people who they don't care about anime support really at all and legacy support. They are more concerned with like, I want a reprint of Pot of Prosperity. I want a reprint of SP Little Knight or, whatever. I don't care about the anime. I'm here to like play the game as it is today. That's fine. And then that's like one group. The other group is just like, well, give us 5Ds love. Where's the Zexal love? So they like anime stuff. They're just tired of seeing DM specifically. To me, I think that we sometimes, when you're in the Yu-Gi-Oh bubble, it's easy to fixate on the opinions of like the hardcore crowd as the only opinions that exist. But I actually think that most people, like the further out you look, like the Blue Eyes stuff coming out over and over and over again.
Yeah, because the fact of the matter is there are intensely more people who love DM era Yu-Gi-Oh, where the Dark Magician and the Blue Eyes is their shit. Like there's like maybe 10 times as many people in that group as like people 20. Who might be 20 times against people who currently play Yu-Gi-Oh and love the modern game as is and don't care for all the DM stuff.
Yeah.
The thing is, we don't hear from the like 20 times group because Yu-Gi-Oh is not the primary thing on their minds. They're not always talking about it.
They think it's cool in a general sense, but they also are not like devout Yu-Gi-Oh players who are like going to locals every weekend and like playing and competing. They might, have some casual decks they build on the side and they play every now and again with their friends. Or maybe they don't even actually play, but they just generally support the idea of Blue Eyes and Dark Magician just getting more cards.
It reminds me of when like Hypeland did their first wave of Yu-Gi-Oh merch. Yeah. And people were coming out the woodworks to get them the new Yu-Gi-Oh drip. They're like, oh my gosh, I love this anime. I can't believe.
Yeah, like the Egyptian God card, like the mats, like the Egyptian God card, like floor mats or whatever. And people are like freaking out over that stuff. Which Hypeland will actually come up a little bit later because I do have some new merchandise, new Yu-Gi-Oh stuff that I grabbed as a story. But I mean, for me personally, I consider myself to be like kind of a lover of the Yu-Gi-Oh IP on the whole. So I don't really mind like Dark Magician and Blue Eyes getting more support. To me, it's probably a net win for Yu-Gi-Oh because like those Blue Eyes structure decks will sell until the end of time on those shelves, and you will find like that 2013 one on like Walgreens shelves, and it is everywhere. And so, to me, I think it's more important to do things that grow Yu-Gi-Oh! As opposed to just catering to like this niche bubble of competitive types.
They do deserve to be catered to in their own way, but you should not or at least Konami will not put any more resources into a group of people that is smaller than their target audience, and they've already spent all the money that they're gonna spend. Like, you know, there's not a lot of growth in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh as far as dollars coming to Konami's pockets.
I think, yeah, competitive Yu-Gi-Oh is more of like a you maintain it thing.
Yeah,
you just maintain the regional circuit, the YCS circuit. People complain a lot in the competitive spaces, but they do keep playing. So
then, you know, that's how it is.
Either way, thank you for the review. Very
oh my gosh, that was lengthy, just the review section of this.
Lengthy talk, but I mean, it's a good question. If you guys ever do want to leave like questions in your review, that's also fine.
It's a good way to sneak your questions in if you don't want to take the randomness of the pot.
Yeah, that is true. Which the pot is back, and there are actually cards inside this week.
It's full, y'all.
So thumbs up for that, because I actually had to get some clear sleeves. Shout out to Tombox. He sent over some clear sleeves I could use. Okay, YGO Worlds for this weekend.
And what a Worlds it was.
There's a lot to say about YGO Worlds this year. I have a lot of different thoughts, actually.
So we'll start with day one, Paul. What did you think?
I did not watch it.
Okay, me neither. So we could just skip to day two.
No, yeah, I'm going to be clear out the gate here. I really only watched like kind of the finals in bits on the side because I was watching a Smash Bros. Tournament last weekend. But I did catch up on pretty much everything, and I saw like the winners and all of that stuff. So that was really cool. I think the YGO Worlds this year, it was different because, you know, there was some controversy around it not really being a public event. It was just sort of a private thing for only the players and, you know, the handful of content creators that they brought out for it, of which we were not included. So,
oh, well, yeah, I didn't get to go to Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, I was not there. But it's okay, Konami, I forgive you. Here are the winners. So in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card Game main event, Ruben Penaranda from the United States prevailed in the final, defeating Mark Solis from the United States to take home the title of Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG World Champion. You can see this picture of him. He's, you know, very happy, kind of crying in celebration, which I saw some people in chat saying that it was like lame that he was crying over winning this event.
There is a culture of people who espouse these very like old hyper masculine rhetorics that that doesn't actually exist in real life.
Like, is it?
These Yu-Gi-Oh players aren't less of men for crying when they like win a large tournament that took
worked like all year toward,
like thousands of hours to prepare for.
Yeah, so like fuck that. Like, I would cry. Like if I won, I would cry.
Like I wouldn't cry, but I also wouldn't win. So
yeah, that's a good way to put it. Duel Links had 2 world champions. The Duel Links Speed Duel final, because there's Speed Duel and Rush Duel, which God, that is the names of those.
I think it's kind of like what I remember what Pheromone told us, or how he would break it down was you call it Speed Duel Links, and you can call it, you know, Rush Duel Links.
Yeah, Sebastian Shelmy from Bolivia and Takuma Kiramura from Japan.
That was actually a great final. I didn't watch.
Okay, who won?
It was Shelmy.
The reason I ask is because every press release will say it says the names of the winners of each category, like TCG, Master Duel, Rush Duel. But for Speed Duel, it just says it was between these 2 people, and they don't say who won. So okay, so it was Shelmy who won.
Yeah, okay. Shelmy won, and it was actually a really fun final because of, you know, they played a lot of strong decks during their match, but what kind of clinched Shelmy's comeback for the victory was when he was 1 game away from going home. Like that, and they had I think they had like 5 decks they could pick from, and once you won with a deck, you couldn't use it again. And so Shelmy should have had at least 2 decks to choose from. And so, what deck did Shelmy choose when he knew if he lost, he went home? He picked Chronomelate.
Oh, that must have thrown people for a loop. I didn't even know that was.
I did not.
I did know that was.
I saw Nebradisc hit the field. I was like, what?
You know, Konami is actually pretty decent though. If they have some of the cards that they got in the TCG like last year, I want to say
it did end up making a very solid board that his opponent could not break through, and he ultimately won that game, and then used that momentum to win the match.
Oh, I should mention in the TCG it was won by Ubel.
You mean Fiendsmith?
Well, no, I'm like Ubel Unchained. Was Fiendsmith at this event? I didn't know if it was like legal for. Was it? I wasn't.
I heard that it was Snake Eyes Fiendsmith versus Yubel Fiendsmith.
Oh, okay. I should have watched more. That's the thing I'm going to get into actually in a second. But the Rush Duel champion was Marc Andre, or Quantum Cubes is his username.
Yeah, Quantum Cubes won. The Rush Duel final was fun too, since Rush Duel is a much more back and forth game.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to play Rush Duels, you probably won't even notice who's winning until it's over with.
That's very much how Rush Duel is. It's super back and forth. It's funny because like people always want that. Like they're like, oh, I want like back and forth Yu-Gi-Oh back. Rush Duel has the back and forth.
Oh, it's back and forth, all right. It was a bit of a shame, but the guy who lost actually was running Blue Eyes, and at one point hit his opponent with a burst stream of destruction.
Really, on stream. Jesus Christ. So burst stream is in Rush Duel?
Yeah.
I know, because Blue Eyes is a legend card, so okay. Huh.
Like, it is a doable thing.
And then finally in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, this was its second time at the World Finals. 3v3 team event, and it was Snipe Hunters against Team 7 again. That's the same finals from last year. This time, though, Team 7 won. That's Ryan Yu, Jesse Cotton, and Raymond Dye became the newest set of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel World Champions. And this is probably the event that actually got the most buzz and talk, because it sort of feels as though Master Duel is kind of taken over as like the game to talk about with competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh yeah.
Like it seems like there's like a little bit more prestige associated with winning it. I don't know if it's because like obviously people like, you know, Ryan Yu, Jesse Cotton, like, all of these players involved, Joshua Schmidt, all of them are very well known in the community. Like they already have accolades in the TCG. So they're kind of easy to root for, but maybe it's like the team dynamic allows you to root for a team as opposed to just like a single player. And then it doesn't hurt that they've got like a rivalry going, because it's pretty rare in Yu-Gi-Oh! To just have like the same two people or two groups or parties in the finals of like the same event the very next year. Like it's kind of cool. So now it's like they're 1-1. Like, so perhaps next year they settle the best of three.
That's so important for esports in general, is to be able to create these storylines. That's something Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been missing for a long time. We've had prolific champions who they go on these runs and they seem unbeatable, but then like the run ends and that's really it. But since I don't know when it happened, but Joshua Smith and Jesse Cotton have pulled ahead of a lot of their competition, become the faces of Yu-Gi-Oh! And now almost regardless of what type of Yu-Gi-Oh! They're playing, whether it's paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Master Duel, you pay attention when their names come up, and then you start asking the like basketball questions. So how do you think that Jesse's win's gonna affect Joshua's legacy, or who's really the GOAT of Master Duel?
Which right now it's pretty clearly Jesse Cotton. I mean, the guy's been winning everything. But so I thought that was kind of cool. It sort of seems like people follow it more. I mean, my personal opinion is that Master Duel is more fun to watch, like on a stream. Because with the TCG, as we know, filming like overhead camera duels physically is very difficult. Yeah. And it's hard to present it in a way that's like easy to follow for people. Master Duel, you kind of get around that problem just by simply, like it shows the chains on screen and the monsters are the summon animations. It's really cool. So
I think in a weird way, and you can disagree if you think I'm wrong.
Well, I do.
I think Master Duel is actually a more competitive way to play Yu-Gi-Oh!
I think so too.
It takes a lot of the extra time, like the extra parts of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! out of the situation. You're not handling physical cards. You're not cutting and shuffling after every interaction with the deck. The game system shows you relevant effects pretty much immediately when they're happening, so you don't have to take time to parse through every word of a card to figure out what's happening in the moment. And that even because of the log, you have a log of everything that's been activated. You can just check at any moment.
It reduces. Would you say then it's reducing kind of the, maybe for lack of a better word, like the sloppiness that kind of comes with table play.
It does.
Sloppiness isn't a great word for it, but basically, like, right, one of the big things in the physical TCG right now are like the time rules, and those are very contentious. And to be clear, like Master Duel has a timer as well, and people don't.
And
even
boy,
like
that
how it
timer
works.
hurts.
Yeah, it can be pretty brutal too. But like in regular Yu-Gi-Oh right now, like there's kind of these arguments around like what is slow play, like all the shuffling, and like we're banning pile shuffling because it takes too long, or like we need to ban Fiendsmith Lacrima because it like burns in a combo, and like and people don't like Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, and so it's kind of like okay. With Master Duel, that's not like we just focus on the game. Like the game is the game is the game.
And I think for competitive players, I think many of them, especially these guys in Snipe Hunters and 7, I think they appreciate the features that get all that bloat out the way so they can focus on the game.
I also like the rule set that they used for Master Duel. There's like teams of 3, and then they each got to pick like 2 decks to be able to swap between, which is sort of how like Duel Links and stuff has done it in the past as well. And I don't know. I mean, I just think that there's more like, because there was not side decking like you'd expect in the TCG. I know like side decking has kind of become a point of contention for some people recently, just because side decks have become maybe so polarizing, and like there's something to be said about like not being able to side, but rather just having to adapt to the opponent's strategy in game strictly. I don't know. It was similar to like last year, where basically I think among your team, and I'm just remembering this off the top of my head, it might not be specifically what I'm saying here, but like basically you and your team cannot share cards. So like it's to ensure that if you're going to play Snake Eye Fire King, I can't also play Snake Eye Fire King in our third team. And so we're all just playing Snake Eye Fire King or whatever. But we are allowed to pick a handful of cards, like I think it's 3, that we can share between decks. But it's only those 3 cards. So you could go for like hand traps, right? Like, okay, we're all allowed to maybe play multiples of Maxi or whatever, Ash Blossom. But also it could be like extra deck things, because that means that like if you're playing a deck that uses Apollosa and Barone, and I'm playing a totally different deck, but it also needs Apollosa and Barone, then there is suddenly some strategy and like min-maxing that's going to have to be involved, some cost-benefit analysis. So I don't know, I think that they're doing pretty good things with how the Master Duel Worlds are happening. I even saw somebody say that like they feel that the Duelist Cups, the system that they use in Master Duel to kind of dictate who gets to go to Worlds, are a better sort of way of determining skill or success than even like a YCS is. And their argument for that is just that like in the Duelist Cups, the second stage Duelist Cup, you have to maintain a high win rate. It's not enough just to like win some matches and be done.
Just like string together.
Yeah, you have to kind of maintain that high win rate. And it's really tough and really grueling. And I've got like my complaints about the Duelist Cup format, like exactly, but I do think that there could be a point to that. So
it didn't stop Ryan Yu from winning 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, and the guy's so talented. Like all these are, it's kind of crazy how good these players are. Like actually,
I'm pretty sure I've said it before. The way Jesse pilots Tiaraments put fear in my soul.
Yeah, Jesse knows what's up. And these players, I mean, like that's the thing. Everybody kind of likes to look at Yu-Gi-Oh in general. This is a Master Duel thing and a TCG thing, and be like, it's a coin flip game, or like just the good decks are just broken, and that's the end of the story. But it's like, if it really was just down to a coin flip, it can't be a coincidence that Jesse's in the finals of every goddamn thing he plays in. The UDS, like every other YCS he goes to, he's like winning or he's in the finals. And then like he's also like in the finals of Master Duel. It's like across all these formats, all these different cards, all these different gameplay styles, and we're still just claiming, it's like a coin flip game. It's like,
it's a sacky coin flip game. Whoever goes first wins.
Jesse just got lucky every single duel he plays.
First every time.
So
it's not that simple, y'all.
And not just him, like all of these players that, these are the finals were the same 2 teams. So it really says something. So that was the sort of groups that ended up winning. Cool, fun.
All right, now for the part that we can speak literally the least on.
Well, there's a couple of different things that also surround this world.
I was gonna say, because the TCG is the next part, of the tournament, and I didn't.
I feel bad. I didn't watch so much of the TCG, so I really didn't even know. This is no offense to the people playing in it. I just didn't really know who very many of the players competing were.
I can't even lie. When I saw them switch the camera view to the physical TCG tables on the stream, I just turned it off.
It's I'm going to keep it professional and just say that I was most interested in Master Duel, but congrats to everybody involved. I don't want to diminish the wins of the people who are playing in this. That's like all totally good.
Winning at Yu-Gi-Oh! At any level is one of the hardest things you will ever do.
I just have my same complaint about Yu-Gi-Oh! Worlds that I kind of always have. It's not even a complaint. It's just it's this very specific format. Like that it's like a 1 weekend kind of OCG TCG mix thing, and I just always found it hard to get myself invested in it.
So my issue with it specifically was at first I thought that our recent ban list was going to be in effect for Worlds, so that Snake Eye was going to be hit in 2 different ways. But once I realized that, oh wait, no, our list is it's too recent, it can't be part of the Worlds format.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, never mind. I don't want to watch this anymore.
Yeah, I also think that the commentary for Master Duel and Duel Links was a little bit more engaging for me personally. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but like I know DZeef was doing commentary for Master Duel, which is really cool. Steve Kangas, he's been doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Commentary the last couple of years. He's great. He's a real professional. He brings a lot of like intensity to the commentary. And like
Pheromone was there.
Pheromone was doing Duel Links.
Jackie Jing, who I don't know if she's ever done commentary with Yu-Gi-Oh! Before.
I think this was her first time.
I enjoyed all their commentary.
Yeah, she seemed really exciting. I don't know. I think like TCG commentary can just be a little more dry is like maybe the best way I can put that.
Like, I think it can be done well, but I do think TCG commentary is a lot like chess commentary. There's not a lot of like extra.
You can only really kind of give like play by play, and it goes back to that whole like Master Duel visually looks cooler to watch. It's even same with Duel Links, where the TCG there's just kind of a lot of time and thinking, and it's just not as a dynamic a look. To follow along with, but still, congrats to all of them. Now to get into the controversial parts of Yu-Gi-Oh! Worlds.
Surprisingly, guys, the World Championship was not just the tournaments.
So on the website Master Duel Meta, which we've all visited, a handful of times at least.
Oh, don't put my name on that. I'm not trying to get banned.
Yeah. Master Duel Meta, the site that is owned by Decade, and, he has got a team of people who work on it. Really great website just in terms of resources. There's a lot. You can look up deck lists, tournament results, news.
It's like your one-stop shop for all things Master Duel.
Yeah. I've said in the past that I think that, well, I'll get into that in a second. But anyway, the deck lists for all of the Master Duel competitors were leaked through that sort of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel add-on software called Untapped. They basically data mined the deck lists for all of the Master Duel competitors at Worlds and then published them on the Master Duel Meta website. And this was published like on the first day of the event.
Yep. So pretty much immediately you could just know what everyone had.
Yeah, which kind of like neutralizes the whole idea of like having unique deck lists, because at the high levels of Yu-Gi-Oh!, deck list building makes a huge difference. It really does. A lot of people maybe think it doesn't, but it matters a lot if like knowing if your opponent runs Nibiru or not, for instance. So like, do I have to worry about this in my combo lines? Do I not? For instance, right? And that's just one of many examples.
I think in Master Duel specifically, because of the shared card rule, that was a huge thing to just reveal to all the competitors and anyone watching, because what cards they chose to share between themselves and what cards they didn't and who had what, that's a huge piece of knowledge to have in a tournament like this. And that just wrecked a huge portion of the strategy of the 3-on-3 Master Duel tournament.
So I actually did not know a whole bunch about like Untapped GG.
It's
like a Master Duel add-on. I've been told about it. It's apparently, like I'm just on their website now, view your performance with each deck, show off your ladder climb, you can make like profiles, you can see card win rates and like what your win rates are for going first and second, what your most played cards are, just different things like that. I've been told about it sometimes in the comments, people are like, oh, you should try this add-on. And using the add-on apparently is fine. I don't know if that's illegal or not.
I've noticed there's a lot of websites like these where they just use the APIs from these games to like, I don't know how they
I think it's like a
them.
client side add-on, but I'm really not an expert in this, so somebody who actually knows what the fuck they're talking about can tell me in the chat. All I know, though, is that it is available for Marvel Snap. It's available for Magic the Gathering Arena, Stormgate, Hearthstone, and, of course, Master Duel. So you can track your matches. That's the gist of the app.
Okay.
Anyway, though, the deck lists were, I guess, they were data mined, they were leaked, and this was a huge issue because it's kind of a compromise to the competitive integrity of the event. And some people were saying, well, you know, Decade's argument, because he made a statement about it, he was like streaming and saying that it was okay to release these lists because it just puts everybody on even ground. He's just releasing the lists for all of us to see. So now all the competitors get a fair look at what everyone else is running. People did not really agree with that take.
Yeah, that's...
and I'm one of the people who does not agree. I think that a big part of competition in Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically, and the card game specifically, is that your deck list is a secret. And it's private.
That's why it's called private knowledge.
Yeah, and I think that like making it public just isn't... That's what he said, so...
So I will say that, you know, that's a bullshit statement.
Yeah, but I don't love it.
But one of my thoughts earlier was, well, if Decade and his crew could get their hands on these deck lists, that means technically any one of the competitors could have done the same thing. And that means that, so let's say Decade did not leak the deck list publicly, right?
Yes.
Then what if, and I'm not saying someone actually would do this, but let's say let's say Joshua Schmidt got his hands on everyone's deck list because of Untapped GG and just didn't say anything, and now he and his team have knowledge on everyone's decks, but no one else knows, that's kind of one of the common counter arguments is like, if you play Master Duel seriously, there's a pretty good chance that you have this extension or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, it's pretty commonly used and talked about in like our Master Duel and a lot of like the Discord servers and things like that. So, in that way, there's a pretty good chance that there were people at this Worlds event who have used this tool. Still, though, I mean, I think that's kind of one of those innocent until proven guilty things. Even if a team had access to it or was using it or whatever, then that's just what it is. But I still think like releasing the lists in general still compromises the integrity of the whole event. Or are you more so focusing on the fact that like the lists just should have been preserved in a way that isn't discoverable no matter what? Yeah, the lists, they should not have been able to be discoverable. You could argue that, and I'm not necessarily on Decade's side here, but you could argue that this is more like a whistleblower act because like if he can get his hands on it, that means anyone can. So
True.
The integrity of the event was ruined the moment Konami held the event in such a way where people could get their deck lists.
Yeah, people were saying that you could technically find these lists through public replays, which I don't know exactly. I don't use the Master Duel replay system, but like apparently you can do it that way. Well, either way, there was an update from Untapped GG. They actually made a statement. We've been making data tools for CCGs for over 8 years. Oh, by the way, it's got the white text on black background like any good company statement. Starting with Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering Arena, Marvel Snap, and now Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Millions of players and influencers use and love our products across these games. We build our tools for players to track their own personal performance, to celebrate their successes, and to identify where to improve. They're intended to help players discover new fun decks and to make it easier for them to learn how to pilot them by being able to see the deck list that they are currently playing. This weekend, it came to our attention that players were able to use the Untapped GG companion to view deck lists in a way that we did not intend. This goes directly against our philosophy and purpose for the tool, and we hotfixed the issue immediately. Our policy is that whenever we detect the game or our client is leaking information that should not be visible to the player, we fix it and notify the game developer if possible. That's interesting. We regret any negative impact this defect may have had on the players at Worlds. We're reviewing our processes to more proactively identify and address these issues in the future. Our goal is to provide tools and stats to help new and longtime Yu-Gi-Oh! Players to have a better, more enjoyable time playing. We hope that our products continue to bring joy to players and support them to realize their full potential at Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel from the Untapped GG team.
Woo!
Long statement. But yeah, so they came out and said this the other day. I mean, I think it's a pretty good statement.
I mean, I think like it is the right statement when, you know, your tool is being used in a way that, you know, you really didn't intend for it. I don't think Untapped GG was like, yeah. And then once they find out that they can view like tournament deck profiles before the tournament actually happens, yeah, and that's something we're gonna gain from. Like, no, like,
yeah,
Untapped GG, that's not their purpose. So
yeah,
this
they made the
just
right
makes
call
sense.
here. They just, you know, kind of owned up that, like, yeah, it was an issue. We've already hot fixed it. This isn't what we intend for the program. I saw some players were like, you know, I'm going to boycott Master Duel Meta, or some people were even, before the statement came out, they're like, I'm boycotting Untapped GG or uninstalling it as a form of protest. I didn't know that Untapped GG apparently sponsors some like Master Duel creators or players or whatever.
I know that.
I wasn't apparently.
Though, to be fair, I didn't even know what Untapped GG was before this.
Yeah, I only vaguely knew what it was. So this is all kind of news to me. Yeah, so, you know, that was kind of a big controversy. Just this competitive integrity thing. I think that Decade came out really looking like quite the villain here. It's such a complicated relationship, I think, that Decade seems to have with like these digital Yu-Gi-Oh games.
Yeah.
Because he used to compete in Duel Links, and he's like even gone to Worlds for Duel Links.
Yep.
And he's now since like been banned from TCG events and stuff. It's weird though, because it's like, if you're Konami, what do you do about this? Like, do you think that they change how the deck lists are stored? Is that something that they can do? I'm not really sure. So, did they issue a statement? Probably not. Because
Konami doesn't like to change Master Duel in any way, shape, or form ever.
Yeah.
I think the simplest fix is that, you know, before the tournament, you issue everybody a temporary Master Duel account, and that will have their deck list, and it will not be associated with the accounts they normally use. That way,
I think that's what they did.
And they still got found?
I think.
Golly.
I know that, I mean, I don't actually, this is just conjecture, but I just know that in some of the past Yu-Gi-Oh events I've played in, like those Master Duel Invitationals, for the first one that we did, we were like using a Konami like account, just an account that Konami provided.
Oh, so they got the deck list off of the games they played in pools, didn't they?
I think so.
Oh,
yeah.
And then so those are literally the accounts they're using. Then, ooh, that's tougher.
But also, like, I don't fucking know exactly how this works. So I don't want to speak on any of that. I'm just commenting on like the events that transpired.
Yeah,
which is that I think that this wasn't a good call for Decade to publish this on his site. I don't know if he was the one who directly published it. I don't know if he like okayed. He probably okayed the decision to publish it. It's his site, so I mean, I assume he would know that a bombshell of news like this.
Because remember, I looked at that post, and the post did have names on it, and I was like, I really wouldn't want my name tied to this when it's likely you'll catch a ban for it.
I went back and looked though, and like that little handful of names of like people who made that post, they're like on every post on Master Duel Meta. So I don't even know if they're individually. Who knows? Long story short, I think that Konami probably will not say anything about this. They'll just kind of pretend it's business as usual, like whatever. Who knows? But
they put out a statement that, or one of their banned players update, and you just see Untapped GG banned for life.
I mean, I thought that in the Master Duel like terms of service, you weren't even supposed to use third-party tools.
You're not. Like, in a lot of cases, for a lot of games, you're just not supposed to use
So it's wild to me that there are like people who are like streaming and stuff, like players who stream and they're just using it. It's like
you know how it is with gamers. You do what you want until someone says you can't.
True. Yeah. I just saw this like tweet from one of theirs. It's like card effect tracking now live. The Untapped companion now tracks card effect activations in real time, allowing players to understand the current board state at a glance. Oh, that's cool. So it like puts like check marks beside the cards in the field if their effects have been activated. It's kind of a cool thing.
Ooh, you gonna get Untapped GG?
Maybe I'll have to give it a shot. I don't know. We'll see. It looks pretty handy to me. I was playing Master Duel last night. Okay, so that's the situation. My final stance on it is I think Decade should have known better. Don't release that. Like I'm totally all for like Untapped or whatever reaching out to Konami in private and like saying like, hey, this is a thing. But I think that like publishing the list just wasn't a good I think it just wasn't a good idea to do that. It's kind of disrespectful to the players too. Like, you know, they're competing, and now you're just kind of having that get ruined. But anyway, any other?
I think that I don't love it, but I still support them putting out the list publicly, because if he didn't put them out publicly, then none of us would have known, and then Konami wouldn't have known, Untapped wouldn't have known, and
so you're kind of approaching it, I guess, from the angle that like it's better that this happened because
now we know
knowledge and
something
can be
done about it.
That's true. That is a good. Yeah, that's a good stance on it, I guess. There were other things that were also kind of tied to Worlds. They showed that VR demo again. I don't know if you saw this. I saw Rhyme Style. He was one of the creators that was at Worlds.
Farfa did it too.
Yeah, they were playing their demo. He said that they allowed him to, like, you know, plug in OBS or whatever, boot up OBS and record it. It's the same demo, it seems, more or less, that was at...
I saw no changes.
Yeah, that was at the Tokyo Dome event back in like February, where it's like this VR kind of experience, played on Meta Quests, it looked like.
Yep.
And you know, summon monsters and they kind of come to life and it's cool. And he was like summoning Dark Magician Girl or whatever. But my understanding is that this isn't actually like a game that's going to be released. It just kind of seems like it's like a cool tech demo that they had at Worlds, and this brings me back to the whole, like, this would have been cool if it was like a public thing that people could have actually gone to, like normal people could get tickets and attend Worlds, and maybe you stand in a line for a couple of booths where you get to try out the Yu-Gi-Oh! VR experience. Because I think otherwise it's just, I don't know, what do you think? You think it looks good? You think it should be
I thought it looked good in February. I mean, this is the same thing again. And it's even the same person showing it to you again. Like, Rhyme Style was at the Tokyo Dome event. He showed it off then, and now he's just showing it off in Seattle too. Nothing's really changed. It's cool, but it was, you know, it was cool in February as well.
Yeah. I got a hot take on this.
What's your hot take? What you got?
I almost find things like this, and I find them almost a little bit like misleading. Now, we don't know right now if it's ever going to come out as a game or if it's just a tech demo. So I'm making the statement under the assumption that this is just going to be like a tech demo. It kind of feels like it's like this weird lie, like almost, where it's just kind of like, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! VR is like in development. Here's a cool demo, and like you can summon a monster. But like, if it's never going to actually become a reality, like, it's a little bit like, what is the purpose of it? Like, is it, because at least bring it to YCS events.
Look, I know the purpose of it.
Like, just
to
make moments,
just simple marketing for moments,
make a cool hype moment. Yeah, I guess so, because like, I think bring it to a YCS event. Allow like a player who is at a YCS at least to, like, you know, stand in line and give it a shot, and like it can be a fun experience.
But then reps from Konami Japan could not be there to like monitor and like take it away when necessary.
That's true. We'll bring one of them over too, because I don't know. I think it feels like it's like a weird empty half promise thing.
Because like it's not even as a promise. It's just to create the idea of. They just want to create the Yu-Gi-Oh! VR idea, because that is, and you know, this is a leap, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I think this is as far as Konami's willing to go with the whole Yu-Gi-Oh! VR experiment. Yu-Gi-Oh! And VR, because of the anime, are intrinsically linked. You'll be hard pressed to find someone that watched the old Yu-Gi-Oh! Animes that wouldn't want a virtual reality holographic Yu-Gi-Oh! Situation.
Vibe.
But that would be very expensive and hard to do. Konami made a demo that shows you what it could be like, and I think, at least for them, that's it. That's all it ever needs to be right there.
Yeah, it's just a way to kind of make a moment.
Because it just reminds you that, oh, I used to love Yu-Gi-Oh! Wow, I wish I could summon my own Dark Magician Girl. Now they don't ever have to make a Yu-Gi-Oh! VR experience, because now you're thinking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, and maybe you'll pick up the new Blue Eye structure deck that's coming out whenever, you know?
Yeah, so I thought it was neat. I hope that they actually release it as something like that. Who knows if that'll happen. Speaking of Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games,
I think we'll get Rush Duels before that.
So we are really comparing, like, you know, twigs to whatever. There's just no.
Look, there's pie in the sky and the cake is a lie. Which one do you want?
During the live stream of the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship 2024, more details were revealed about the upcoming Nintendo Switch game Early Days collection. So we've been wanting a little bit more like information on this.
And boy, did we get a little more.
We got a little bit more. So they confirmed 5 of the games that are going to be included in this. And they say confirmed, but I think that all 5 of these were actually mentioned in some press release before, if I'm remembering correctly. But anyway, Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days collection is packed with Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games from the very early days of dueling. So here's 5 of the games that are included. There's Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, which is a 1998 game on Game Boy. This was never released in the States.
Right.
There's also Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 2, Dark Duel Stories.
Hey!
Which isn't actually the Dark Duel Stories game that we got,
What?
which is also in Game Boy Color. And then there's Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Duel Stories.
Okay, stop.
The naming conventions for these old games is so weird. Like literally, okay, I'm just gonna name all.
Is this one also not the Dark Duel Stories?
This is the actual Dark Duel Stories.
Okay.
So it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. That's the name of the first game. It was on Game Boy. Then Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 2, Dark Duel Stories. That was on Game Boy Color. Both of these were only released in Japan. Then the third game was released in both, Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Duel Stories. And that was released in 2000 in Japan and 2002 in the United States, 2003 in Europe on the Game Boy Color as well. Then Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 4, Battle of Crest Duelists. This was only released in Japan. And then Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, we skip 5, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 6, Expert 2. That's the name of the game, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 6, Expert 2, which was released in 2001 in Japan for the Game Boy Advance. And more. So there will be more games than just these 5, but these are 5 of the games that will be included in the collection. A bunch of retro classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Things.
I mean, my assumption is that we're gonna hit like the sacred cards and like Resha for Destruction.
Yeah, I think that they should definitely include those. A lot of people are kind of hoping that they would include like Duels of the Roses and
like
Capsule Monster Coliseum, but I have a bad feeling they won't.
I would like to see those in the collection, but it feels like that's a step too far.
In what way? How do you mean?
Just because, you know, based on the games we already have in the early collection, these are all Game Boy-esque era games. They're all fairly similar in how 2D, they play.
So it'd be easy to kind of port all these over. Maybe it's more difficult.
It just feels like that's a bit of a step in another direction. Duelist of the Roses is more similar to a game like Wheelie Breakers than it is to, well, Dark Duel Stories.
Can I be frank? Why the fuck don't they just include literally everything up to like 2010? These are all games that are like megabytes in size, and they could just throw them all on like a disc or a cartridge or whatever and just release it all. Like what?
Which, I mean, they still might be doing that. We don't know how big this will be.
Because I don't really see the point in like all this like wishy-washiness. These are old games that haven't been re-released in like multiple decades. Just throw it all on there, particularly because I think this is going to be on Steam anyway. And like Steam is known for having huge game compilations. Just release it all. And also, where's the trailer for this? Like, why are we getting like these little like drops of information in the form of like images on stream when you could just make a trailer? Maybe I'm asking too much.
Those trailers will be in Japan.
But they'll still get like released. Like there are no trailers so far in either language.
This is another one of those Konami Japan led like projects and initiatives where Konami US gets all that stuff secondhand. And they only get what Japan greenlights for them to show. So what we see is what Japan is allowing us to see. And
well, here's something exciting.
Oh,
I was kind of concerned because like, okay, they're re-releasing these games. But one thing that they won't be able to recapture is kind of the getting physical cards in the product, like in the package. Remember as a kid,
are we gonna get like Master Duel cards?
No. Remember as a kid, you'd get cards in the box with like Dark Duel Stories. I actually have a Dark Duel Stories Blue Eyes.
You got it out of the box?
No, I bought it. But if you buy the physical copies of this game, which I think is only on the Switch, you will get one of these 2 quarter-century secret rare Harpy's Feather Duster cards.
Oh, they have both artworks.
Yeah, so they have the original Harpy's Feather Duster and the original Harpy's Feather Duster. I say both original because technically this first art came out like in a video game first in TCG, but this was the one that you would have seen in the anime like artwork in the show. So they are quarter century secret rares, my favorite rarity, and you will get one of these two. So it seems like it is kind of a variant thing. So,
question,
maybe answer.
Is there a release date for the Early Days collection?
No.
All right. So
what'd you think?
That's why I have to ask these things. So there's a chance that Early Days collection is not coming out until like 2026.
Yeah, we'll still be in this 25th
yeah,
anniversary thing.
That's what I was getting at. It's like, so we're still printing quarter century rares in 2026?
What Early Days collection is, I don't see how this could possibly take any longer than another couple months to release. Like, it's ports of games.
Like, the game itself should already be done. I don't know why we're taking so long to tell us
that's
more
what I'm
about
saying.
it.
Why are we being so coy about this? Like, it just...
Maybe Konami's lost a lot of those files and they're trying to find these games. Like, hey, these games got to be somewhere in his office. Where are they? Because when you think about it, these are games from like the Game Boy era all the way into like allegedly maybe into the GameCube era. It's like the same people working for Konami Japan probably aren't even working there anymore. And you have to ask them, you have to ask yourself, do they have the files anymore?
I was saying no offense, but this is gonna be one of my old Konami things. They're so weird about like releasing information on stuff. Like, just say when it's coming out.
They will when they're ready.
Do you remember how Master Duel released?
Oh, how
do you remember this? Like,
it's shadow dropped.
It just shadow dropped one day. And like, it was kind of weird. It's like, oh, like it's sort of available on some consoles now and others in the next morning. And it's like, it's very like, just give a goddamn release date. It's a compilation of like old ass Game Boy games. Anyway.
I don't know what the status of like what's going on with Konami in Japan, but I just feel like they're in some like Naruto-esque world where they're like a ninja village and they're terrified of leaking their secrets to the evil ninjas over at Bandai Namco.
What will the players? What evil thing will the players get up to by knowing the date that Early Days
collection? We're not ninjas. We don't get to know.
Also, why isn't there even like a box art or something? Like, it's a compilation.
It's not done yet, Paul.
Yeah.
Or it's a secret that they're saving with the release date.
Right, okay. So that's the Early Days collection. It's coming out at some point in time.
Well, that's some of the Early Days collection.
Yeah, it's some of it.
We'll get more of the games at some other time.
They also released or showed on stream and then later released these videos of 2 NFL football players. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of interesting. George Kittle and Jamal Williams both did these interviews. And they actually, this happens, are Yu-Gi-Oh fans.
Yep, and players.
Yeah, did you see this?
Yes, I did. I think for me, it was between the Rush Duel and Speed Duel finals where I saw it.
I thought this was really cool. This is, I know I've been bitching a lot in this podcast so far. Konami gets me hot and bothered. But this is a really cool thing. I think that showing, obviously, professional athletes, that's a pretty big deal. A good pierce into the mainstream. But showing that they aren't just like, I loved watching it as a kid, haha. Like, that's the end of the, no, like, particularly Jamal Williams in his interview, he's like, yeah, I play fucking Snake Eye. I play Snake Eye. I play Pearly. I like negating things.
Yeah, so
I like field control.
Modern Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, like I play this shit, and I thought that was a really cool thing. So more of that, please.
Well, I mean, maybe more of that. I guess
maybe in a different form.
Just because what confused me is what I guess confused a lot of people is like, why are you showing this to us, the people who already play the game? Like, a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players know a regular person who enjoys and plays Yu-Gi-Oh already. We know non-losers and nerds play Yu-Gi-Oh. The people who don't know this aren't watching the Yu-Gi-Oh World stream.
This reminds me a lot of the Zayn Malik thing where it's... If you really want to expand Yu-Gi-Oh, you kind of have to show these sorts of commercials and promos. Yeah, put them on TV. Put them on, like, just as paid ads on social media in general, which maybe that's what they're planning to do. I mean, they only just revealed this. But I think that you really
I'm gonna make a hard call here. They're not.
Maybe not. I don't know. I think that it's cool that they play, and that's fun. And I also think that they need to maybe try to get them playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, is there a way that we can have some sort of an event, some sort of cool video where, you know, maybe they get coached by Jesse Cotton and Joshua Schmidt, or maybe they have like it's like a team event, like, you know, Team George versus Team Jamal, right? And like they each have like 5 established players on their teams, or like something cool like that could be really fun. And I'm hoping that that's maybe what they're cooking in those Konami digital entertainment offices. But I thought the video was good, but I agree with your sentiment that like we don't need to really see this. It's cool and reassuring and stuff, like, oh, awesome, but like maybe we aren't the people who need to see it the most. Yeah,
just, you know, if we were to pretend like the goal was to spread awareness of Yu-Gi-Oh, but I know, but we can go back to the goal of maintaining, right?
Yeah,
I think this still lines up with maintaining Yu-Gi-Oh. If you want to remind regular people who have long since left this game behind that Yu-Gi-Oh exists and is played by, you know, a lot of people today, put some of their favorite athletes in front of them still playing Yu-Gi-Oh. And maybe these guys aren't like people's favorite athletes, but Jamal Williams plays for the Saints, and you know how I feel about the Saints.
Yeah,
I know how my city feels about the Saints. I know so many former Yu-Gi-Oh players who live in New Orleans, and they are Saints fans, and they don't even know Jamal Williams plays Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, and they wouldn't know because like you had to have been tuned into the fucking Yu-Gi-Oh World Championships, which already is kind of obscure.
You have to be a little crazy to be watching the World Finals, like us, you know.
A little insane. That's actually a comment I saw on social media too. Is someone was like, I didn't even know this was happening. Like, there were people who just didn't really know what was going on, and like they didn't know like what's happening. And that's something that Konami, I've said this last year and in many years past, I don't think that they do a good enough job making Worlds feel like it's like commanding of your attention and like this matters and all that stuff. It matters to the players, and I think it matters to the hardcore crowd watching, but to the average person, I think it would be easier to get invested in like Pokemon Worlds.
Well, you could argue that that Konami is telling you that Worlds isn't that important by not having crowds at the event, by having it not open to the public.
Yeah,
it kind of helps sell this idea that this is a really niche event for a few people.
Well, good job, Konami. You convinced me.
This is an intimate event, you know, just
very intimate indeed. So that's pretty much Yu-Gi-Oh! Worlds. I mean, did I leave out is there anything else that major?
Nah, I feel like we covered everything at least I could think of.
Sorry if I got a little too negative about the whole thing. I don't know. Sometimes I want Yu-Gi-Oh! To do like more, and I worry that sometimes like there's like hints of a good initiative, but it doesn't quite like go the full distance.
I thought we were going to go the full 9 yards. But you still need 1 more yard to get a first down. That's a football reference. Just want you to know that.
I thought we were going to get more information from those like Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime Chronicle videos. Like, you know, remember those?
Yeah, we'll get that after Physical Rush Duel release.
No, we won't. Oh, speaking of Physical Rush Duel, so technically that Rush Duel prize card is the first English Physical Rush Duel card.
It is.
I saw somebody say.
In fact, it is the only English Rush Duel card, arguably forever.
Who's to say? Oh, that's another thing. I saw the prize cards, Dragon of Illumination, Sanctuary Shield, and stuff. That was kind of neat. But
the dragon looked cool. That's all I can say.
That's Yu-Gi-Oh! Worlds. For those of you guys who did tune in, I'm curious if you tuned in at all and what you thought of the event. How could it have been improved? I think it was perfectly fine the way that it was.
I am upset, though, because I didn't watch day one. I didn't get to see if they were doing the like all-night Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime stream they did last year.
They didn't do that last year.
That wasn't last year?
That was like the quarter century celebration.
Oh, that was a quarter century
Which was a good thing, the all-night anime.
I enjoyed, like,
that was fun.
Because I remember I was up late that night just watching GX, just random GX episodes along with the stream.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Worlds can always stand to improve a little more each time. Anywho, that's all the Yu-Gi-Oh! Mainly. I mean, there were some announcements of things like Speed Void's got some new cards. I saw that Crystron's getting like legacy support.
My eyes glazed over immediately when I saw it was a level 12 Synchro Dragon.
Yeah, just another Crystal Wing form. But
what was it? Crystal Clear Wing Over Dragon, something like that, or Over Crystal Clear Wing Dragon.
Yeah, you know what?
I believe it took 2 tuners, a clear wing, and then like some number of non-tuners, something like that.
There's a new archetype called the ARG Stars.
I remember.
Did you see this?
I saw them and I was like, oh, it has that one art style that's really popular in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. Then I started reading them and stopped.
Yeah.
I've reached a point with Yu-Gi-Oh cards now where I'd rather just wait for someone just to say what the archetype does, because I just don't feel like parsing through one card's like paragraphs of effects to figure out what the entire archetype does.
It's easier for me when the card's released. I've started to focus more on cards like right as the set's coming out, as opposed to like knowing a bunch.
You're a better man than me. I usually just wait for Dual Daddy to come out with an infographic, or I'll turn on an MBT video, like a clip from his live stream where he talks about them.
Yeah, so very cool. Anyway, I think that's all the Yu-Gi-Oh news. I'm exhausted of talking about it. I think I've worn myself out. So it is time to transition into a little bit of TCG news. If you have any, I've got a couple things.
Let me pull up my stories. I was supposed to have them up already. My bad.
You're good. My first story actually is Netflix has scrapped Magic the Gathering's animated TV series.
Oh, okay. I had that one too.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I remember hearing that there was going to be a Magic the Gathering Netflix series. I know because the professor told me back in like 2022.
Yeah, I think this was one of those COVID announcements where, you know, during COVID, all kind of things got greenlit that never seemed to come to pass.
Right. Magic the Gathering's long-awaited Netflix series has been scrapped, according to lead actor Brandon Ruth. Speaking with Collider, Ruth has claimed that the show is, quote, not happening, and this bombshell is actually old news to him, so he's known for a while. Hasbro, Netflix, nor Wizards of the Coast have made an official announcement just yet, though Ruth was set to voice the show's main character.
You know what would be funny, and you know also rude, is if it was only over for him. Like,
oh, maybe that's what he meant.
He's like, oh yeah, it's been over. Then they announced the release date of it. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, first announced in 2019, it was first reported that the Russo brothers would executive
Order 66.
Would executive produce the series, but voluntarily left the project in 2021 over differences in vision. It was later reported in 2021 that a new creative team had been put in place, led by Transformers Prime executive producer Jeff Klein. It was then announced that a screening of the show would take place in the second half of 2022, but the series mysteriously vanished following the cancellation of several high-profile animation projects in that same year. The last we heard of the project was in 2023, as the series was confirmed to still be in the works by Hasbro's CEO in an earnings call. But apparently that's all not the case anymore.
Well, it did its job of getting investors to invest, and then they pulled the plug once they did it.
And here's the full quote from Brandon Ruth. I'm not sure. I did do a voice for it. As far as I understand, nobody's put out a press release about it, but apparently it's not happening. That's kind of old news. I'm not sure why it's surfacing again.
Surfacing again, as if it's surfaced ever.
Yes, I guess this is going to be a Netflix show, so it doesn't surprise me too much to hear that it's canceled. I know they're all about canceling shows, but at least they'll usually give them a first season and then just cancel them a few weeks after that.
That is their typical like MO, but the animation industry has been going through it. Even though there's been many high-profile animations that have come out in the last 5 years, the industry as a whole is still not doing very well. It's a shame that we missed out on this. Magic the Gathering, especially ever since the One Ring fiasco, has been this kind of riding high with their Universes Beyond stuff. So an animation would have really helped catapult Magic to the next level.
Yeah, like clearly Magic wants to be more mainstream. And I mean, not saying that it isn't. Like, I think like Magic is more mainstream than like Yu-Gi-Oh is right now for sure. There's so many collabs that go on, and a lot of celebrities and stuff will at least say that they have played Magic or they do play Magic.
I believe the Russo brothers took on the project because they were Magic players.
Yeah, so like I definitely think that it's a good idea for them to try to be doing that. It sucks that it's canceled.
It does, but I guess now we can just focus more on the Magic the Gathering manga series. That does exist.
Oh yeah, there's a.
I always forget about it, but there's a manga for Magic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's translated in English officially. I think it just might be over there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's canceled. That's unfortunate. For any of the Magic the Gathering listeners who are really excited about it, do you feel this is something that Magic needed? I know, like, sometimes I hear these somewhat dissenting opinions that people have about, like, Magic's world, like all the collabs and everything.
Well, I don't think Pony would have been in this.
Well, right, but I just meant, like, maybe the crowd who doesn't like these universes beyond and these secret layers and stuff, maybe they also don't like the idea of it getting a show because that feels like it, in some other way, you know, denigrates the brand or the property. I mean, I wouldn't think so, but there might be someone who feels that way.
If the style of the show did not line up with the kind of mythos that they've created over there for Magic, then there might be an issue. But my understanding was it was supposed to be an animated series that took place within their universe and with the characters that you would expect to see in a Magic the Gathering show. So I don't think it was going to be a problem. I think this is a huge loss for the MTG community, especially, you know, the lore heads, the ones who really do this.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's good. I think when I think of that, I think of Arcane for, like, League of Legends. Yeah. For some reason, that just comes to mind. It was a really good show, and it goes really well. They probably
wanted this to be Magic's Arcane, which is a huge praise when you remember just how huge Arcane was. It was extremely popular.
Deal. And I know, like, Magic actually has lore that they talk about on, like, Yu-Gi-Oh's lore, where you have to wait for Japanese translations and hope that they're right. But
interpret pictures.
That is neither here nor there. Yeah, so, you know, that's it's canceled now, so there's not much more to say about it.
So it's sad when the news is cancellation.
Anyways, got any other card game stories?
No, it seems nobody stole any Pokemon cards in a while now. But really? Give it time.
I'm sure there actually would have been one if you just typed in Pokemon robbery.
Well, I did. I mean, I've actually started doing that every week now. I look up Pokemon theft, Pokemon robbery, and recently Pokemon murder. But nothing came up this week.
Well, guess what? There's another card game story that I've got.
What you got?
Riot Games is teasing a League of Legends trading card game, if you can believe it.
You mean Hearthstone?
No. So League of Legends developer Riot Games has teased that a real-life trading card game is on the way thanks to a video that was shared on Chinese social media site Bilibili. I think that's how you say that.
Yeah, Bilibili.
Or something like that. Anyways, League of Legends has come a long way since its inception, originally hosting only 40 champions. It's quadrupled in size with over 160 characters today, a multitude of... Okay, blah, blah, blah. I hate when articles start out like this. SEO bait.
Just bloat.
Well, anyways, this isn't the first time Riot has delved into card games before. Legends of Runeterra was their first try at transforming the MOBA into the format, but it was entirely digital with no market for players to trade and collect cards. Of course, a physical trading card game would be a very different step, with Riot able to monetize the title and also potentially introduce card rarities.
So Hearthstone's the other game. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get my digital card games confused.
So this is something that's apparently maybe going to be releasing, I guess, in China, but a League of Legends developer has confirmed that the card game currently is not scheduled for a global release.
I mean...
So it's very possible that they just want to test it out in a single market before they expand it. And see how, like, people's interest looks.
China is not a market you test something in. That market is huge. You test things in really small markets, like somewhere in Europe or, you know, like an actual small market. China's huge. That's not a test. They intend to actually be a player over there.
Here's this little, I'm just going to show this
little trailer
30-second trailer. I'll turn the volume up a little bit.
Oh, look, I see symbols.
Yeah, there's like 6 symbols. That could probably be colors or something.
Yeah, they're flying. There's Ari, the
you know
fox
who that
girl.
is?
There's I only know because of what people say. That's Miss Fortune, I think, right there.
These are clearly some champions that are maybe pretty popular, well known. They all convert into this one card that's being held by somebody.
That's a nice card back.
Rune Battleground 2025 world premiere is what this trailer says.
Interesting. They're calling it a world premiere, but it's only in China.
See, that's why I think that it is planned to globally released. I mean, if they say world premiere, I guess premiere in the sense that the world is seeing it, but if it's only intended for China, that's kind of odd. So,
but I get it. I mean, I wouldn't want to release a new card game in the States either. This is
yeah, it's a tough time to be doing that.
This is a crowded market where I think doesn't matter how good your game is anymore, you can fail purely because of just there's too many other games. Yeah. Being the best card game doesn't matter anymore.
Would you be interested in playing a League of Legends card game if it came out?
Well, I don't play League, so...
Yeah, neither do I. I was asking in case.
I guess if they have characters from Arcane, sure.
Yeah, I would assume that they would.
I liked Arcane, but I have enough card games. I really don't want to add to my roster of card games.
Yeah, I don't think people need to.
If they land in my lap, I'll give them a try.
Yeah, well... Reach out, Riot, if you want us to take a look at your card game. Okay, that's
how's your Mandarin?
The card game stories that I've got.
So earlier this week, it was announced, but it was really rumored, that the sequel to Beyond the Spiderverse was having its script scrapped, and they were going to be delaying until 2027.
Yeah.
And that was going around for a full day or
hours.
two. Yeah, and everyone was reacting.
Eternities are today's news cycle.
That's true. That once something's been out there for 2 days, it's history.
Yeah.
But on the 10th, it says producer Chris Miller says all is well in the Spiderverse.
Okay, so it sounds like it just hasn't been completely scrapped and all that.
It sounds like that was just some rumor that was unsubstantiated, because Miller took to X on Tuesday to deny a claim from the Snyder, I guess that's the blog that posted the rumor, about problems with the third film in the Oscar-winning franchise. The newsletter reported on Monday evening that Sony had scrapped most of the movie for creative reasons and that it would be unlikely to debut before 2027. Miller tweets in response, "Nothing has been scrapped. The reels are coming along nicely." His comment came hours after Spiderverse composer Daniel Pemberton similarly hit back at the report, writing on X, "Don't really ever want to weigh in on this sort of stuff, but would you ever believe there could sometimes be stuff on the internet that might not always be particularly accurate?" Yeah. So two people that are actively working on this franchise are like,
yeah,
this is BS. This isn't real.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing those tweets. I'm always reminded of how there's so much stuff on social media where it's just these sites that share it around. Dexerto's guilty of this too, but Culture Crave or whatever, and discussing film. There's
some Twitter account with a blue check mark,
pop culture, whatever, and they just it's rumors say that Spider-Verse movie has had issues and will be delayed until 2027. And it's just kind of what source says who,
that's
where
better than what I saw, because I remember when in our group chat, the tweet that I saw just said Spider-Verse scrapped. Not expected before 2027. There was no, it's rumored. It's just, it reported it as a fact.
Yeah, they say statements now. Mm. It's one of my least favorite parts about kind of the headline culture that we live in, where it's just, it's really more about the headline, and the way that it's worded is oftentimes either, it's, if not misinformation, it will just be it's misleading stuff or something. I don't know. Just, Spider-Man movie will be released in 2027. And it always just says who. Why is it that we can get a tweet and it's got 2 pictures or something? It'll have a picture of Miles from the second movie and then a picture of Sony Studios logo, and it's just and then and somehow that officiates the news.
Officiates,
you know what I mean? It's very weird. I don't.
But for them, that gets the job done. That does what needs to be done.
It gets shared.
They get their buzz,
clicked.
and then if anyone responds to it, they get more buzz. So
yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that it sounds like the movie is going well, because I know I saw I actually didn't see the first movie. And that was in 2018, 19, something like that. I saw the second one. That was Through the Spider-Verse, right?
I think that's Beyond. Or wait, is it
No,
Across?
Beyond's the one that's coming up, because Across is.
I get them. Which one's Into the Spider-Verse is the first one. Beyond the Spiderverse is the one that's upcoming.
Yeah,
so across the Spider,
through or across or whatever is the middle one. Because like,
all right, Sony, I would need y'all to relax.
It's supposed to be like you're going towards it, you're going through it, now you're beyond it. So it's like that was how I understood it. Yeah, I look forward to seeing the next one. I also saw this is I don't have a story for this. Just they confirmed that like Tom Holland's going to be in Spider-Man 4. So
I mean, who else was going to be in it?
I don't know. I thought they were going to recast him, but good for him. I think Tom Holland's Spider-Man, for the live action ones, is also very good.
I feel that it is likely to be his last Spider-Man. So. And it's not the same thing about him personally. It's just that we've never had a Spider-Man for this long before. Yeah,
I think that it's presumably maybe like him in college or something. Because the third movie ended off with him like going to college, right? Wasn't that kind of the...
Yeah, I think they were doing college planning. It will be strange for him to be playing high school again, still before college, when they were talking about going to college in the last film, which that came out...
Yeah, so...
2, 3?
Like 3 years ago.
3 years ago? Yeah, that would be a little strange.
It's been a while. Okay, cool. Well, that's just Spider-Man news. Speaking of films, I guess this is a pretty nice little segue here. HBO's Harry Potter series opens casting call for Harry, Ron, and Hermione.
Paul, you got to audition. You got to do it.
Well, you have to be ages 9 to 11 for this.
You can do that.
So I don't know that I can really pass for it, but I'll try. Maybe if I shave and don't open my mouth, I might get by. The search for the next Harry, Ron, and Hermione has begun. HBO has opened a casting call for the 3 stars of its upcoming Harry Potter TV series. Fans spotted the announcement circulating online Monday, and HBO confirmed its authenticity to Variety. The casting call is looking for children who will be between the ages of 9 to 11 in April 2025, and who are residents of the UK and Ireland. Oh, so I'm sorry, I can't do that. The notice also says that casting will be inclusive to all races, ethnicities, and gender identities. We're committed to inclusive, diverse casting. It reads, oh boy, here comes the controversy.
I'm about to say that can
for every
go
role,
so wrong.
Please submit qualified performers without regard to ethnicity, sex, disability, race, sexual orientation, gender identity, or any other basis protected by law unless specifically indicated otherwise. So.
Okay, so there is some BS with that, Kat. With that.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean?
So I understand they can be flexible with casting almost any character. Mm-hmm. However, they're not going to cast a girl as Harry, right? They made it sound like you can, no matter what you are, you can go for any role, but they're not going to switch Harry's gender. I don't think that's a play they're trying to make here.
I mean, I think that they're just saying that as like in general for like all 3 roles. Maybe it's kind of what they're meaning to imply. I don't know. I mean, they could. Maybe they'll do a girl Harry. I'm still watching.
That would turn Twitter upside down.
Here's the thing about this. I already hate that I even brought this up because really and truly, like, it's people always like turn these things into issues, like, the whole like diverse casting and like all that stuff. I mean, they're casting for a movie. They're going to just pick whoever's best for the roles that they have in mind. That's how it's going to be. I don't really think it has
It's really about who's the most marketable.
More than that, yeah. The application requires the actors to submit 2 short self-tapes, including a short poem or story, but nothing from Harry Potter. So it has to be your own thing.
Reads from Percy Jackson, gets canceled immediately. Nope, not allowed.
They also say, please use your own accent. 30 seconds maximum. So the second self-tape is a short video telling us a bit about yourself, including your date of birth, height, and where you live. In addition, please describe any family member, friend, or pet that you are particularly close to. Use your own accent, 1 minute maximum. And
so it does seem, this feels less about their acting ability and more about marketability. Is this someone we can sell for years going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're going to obviously be looking for just... Does it kind of encapsulate the vibe, right, of the character? Is the kid that's comfortable in front of the camera? Things like that, what's valuable to them? How do they look? How do they feel about, like, just, movies and poems and, like, stories and stuff like that?
Because it's interesting. I remember, because I did a little theater back in school. I remember when we did auditions, it was about getting into character and becoming the character. But this is specifically more about, it's not, we don't want you to become like Harry as written.
Character yet.
We want to see you. We want to, like, are you our Harry? Not can you become Harry? Are you?
And I think that's important because, I mean, if this is going to be like a long-running series, then much like with the movies or films or whatever, they're going to kind of be like growing up on this set. And so you really want to get good people.
It kind of reminds me of the Marvel style of casting, where it's less of turning the actor into the character. It's more so as, hey, is this actor, does Robert Downey Jr. feel like Iron Man to you? And it's like, you know what? He does feel like Iron Man. Yeah, we can do that.
The submission deadline is October 31st, and the casting call says the show will film in the UK during 2025 and 2026. There's no release date yet for the HBO series. So the show is expected to run for 7 seasons, with each one adapting one of the books. Calling me excited. I'm a Harry Potter fan, and I'm, just hearing news like this is cool. I hope that we get some good actors for this,
Good actors. These children are in for years of work. That is insane. I mean, when you really think about this.
Yeah, you're in for effectively at least a decade of filming.
Your childhood is this will be your childhood now.
I do feel bad for these kids because much like we were saying sort of at the beginning of the story, the moment that you even start saying words like, diverse casting, people already have an issue with just the words being uttered. But
I just want them to mean it is all. That's my thing. It's like, if you're going to say diverse casting, then you better mean it.
These kids I know are going to be
scrutinized.
Really scrutinized. I think that they're going to be just lambasted on the internet for years to come. I mean, not my Harry, not my Hermione, whatever. And I really fear that, because if they are going for diverse casting, then Ron might be black, let's say, and what how people will respond to that.
I saw how people responded to a fictional depiction of a fictional character being black was. So I already know.
Yeah, so I hope that they really protect these kids, for real, because they're going to be under a lot of fire. So.
But the most interesting part to me about all this is the promise out the gate that this is going to be your life, until you're essentially an adult. I mean,
actually, they don't. According to the applications here, they're not saying anything about you're committing to all of the show. You're just committing to this first season.
But they're not going to. I guess they could switch. Because
they could switch. Shows do it all the time. Nothing is sacred. They wouldn't want to, but they do. Big fun fact from the original Harry Potter films. I know Daniel Radcliffe only signed for the first 2, and then they were just we'll decide after the second one how he feels about it. If we want someone different, if he wants to be out of it. So
I feel like Hollywood has changed. I feel like that's how things used to be done. Nowadays, I think we see less recasting, and now if somebody wants to leave the project, you just nix the character.
I was going to say it's either the character gets written out, which that can't really work in something like this, or the show gets canceled.
And that can happen too.
We see recastings. I know in The Witcher, they changed from Henry Cavill to...
to the
whoever
I forget the new guy's name,
but
hope for the best.
Typically, it's just Netflix canceled your show or something. So
I was watching. I caught up on the Amazon Prime series, The Rings of Power. They had a first season forever ago, and I never watched it. So I watched that, and now I'm caught up to where the second season is. But between the first and second seasons, the one of the primary actresses, she left the project for reasons unknown, and so they could have just recast the character since she had a storyline and she had she had a romantic interest, she had a child. They just killed her off in the second season. Oh yeah, she didn't make it.
Yeah, they're pretty quick to get rid of these characters. Woof. Well, at any rate, I look forward to this. On a related note, I also saw that Quidditch Champions game came out.
Yep.
It seems like it's pretty fun. I might give it a crack.
Honestly, I think it looks like a good enough time. It reminds me of Rocket League.
Yeah. different roles for the characters. You can customize them. You can play online. So I might give that a shot. It seems fun. Anyway, that's it for my Harry Potter story.
And next,
I will be watching either way. I'm a Harry Potter fan. I'm going to watch it.
Continuing on our trend of film, this one's a bit sadder. So James Earl Jones, known for voices like Darth Vader and Mufasa,
Oh, I saw this.
has passed at 93 years old.
Okay. Tell us more. Is there any, do you know like cause of death, or is it just kind of like just natural causes?
I don't think we know. At least they haven't. At least in the article that I'm reading, it was not reported how he passed. Okay. But he passed, and that's a huge loss for, I mean, the 90s.
Yeah, many of these things.
I mean, really before that, because I think his first role, or one of his first most famous roles, was in Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove in 1964.
Yeah.
But many people from our generation, they'll know him from Mufasa, Simba's father in The Lion King, and Darth Vader.
Yeah. I actually I guess I did not know that his voice was in that many things. Yeah. Like, it's kind of crazy when you think about like the animated Lion King movie. So that was a voice that so many kids will have heard. Like, isn't it just crazy how we sometimes view like, I am your father and all these things, as we associate them really closely with the characters, obviously, in like films. But something that's like weird to think about is just how like the person who voiced that line has just gone on into eternity. Like, it's just immortalized lines, like certain immortalized lines.
Like, it was immortalized. It became a meme. This was James Earl Jones's. That's how he became pop culture. And he's gone now, and there's no replacing that. I mean, we've had other iterations of Darth Vader. We've had other iterations of Mufasa. His performance will never go away.
Yeah, unfortunate. I've been bringing more stories to the pod recently where it's like, a voice actress dies. It's kind of sad because, a lot of them seem to be like passing so close together. I guess it's more publicized now, so it just maybe it seems that way. But and I have to forgive me, I forget the name of the voice actress who voiced Misty. And she passed away a few weeks ago. I forgot to bring that story on. And one of the characters that like she voices is like, she did Jigglypuff in the shows, and also voiced like Jigglypuff in like the Smash Bros games. And so like, the renowned Jigglypuff player Hungrybox was like saying how like it's almost surreal that he's played this character for years and like made these huge wins and strides in tournaments, and just you're always hearing those Jigglypuff sound effects, and it's like she did those. Like, it's like a weird connective tissue.
Yeah, we don't always connect the characters to the people behind them, because I mean, who sat there and watched the credits anyway, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the idea is that like if they're doing such a great job, they become the character, and you just see. The Mufasa voice is just the Mufasa voice. The Darth Vader voice is the Darth Vader. Like,
it's true. It would almost be a discredit to the craft if you could trace the voice to the actor.
Yeah, like you can trace it all after the fact. Like once they've done many different roles, like okay, it's cool. Yeah. I can kind of hear him in this. But like, the voice should be distinct enough that it's.
Yeah. When you hear this, you're thinking of Vader. You're thinking of Mufasa. You're thinking, hopefully you're not thinking of the actor behind it, because then it takes you out of the experience. You're not immersed.
So he did a very good job then, because I really did not know that Mufasa and Darth Vader had the same voice actor. I was not aware of this at all. Cool. Or not cool. I mean, his work, cool. His passing, not so cool. But rest in peace. I mean, he
was at 93, so.
Incredible body of work, so much respect. You got another story for us?
I do.
Do you? Because I know there's obviously the big one, the big news in the.
Actually, I need to delay my next story.
Okay, well, I'll bring the big news, which is that the PlayStation 5 Pro was recently announced.
Yep.
In a sort of Sony, I don't know what you'd call it, I guess sort of like a reveal video, showcase from Mark Cerny, who has worked at Sony for a very long time. I remember seeing him in like those PlayStation keynotes like years and years and years ago.
I'm glad you do.
Yeah, that was back when I like followed gaming a lot. The PS5 Pro is announced. I'll cut to the chase. It's $700.
Ooh,
and yeah, so you know you get improved performance.
Good
is what they emphasized. 3 particular pillars was like they're working on improved ray tracing, AI upscaling, and then better balances between like fidelity modes and performance modes.
So those are 3 things.
Those are kind of the 3 big.
Each
tenets.
one's worth $100.
I suppose so.
500, 600, 700. Okay,
right, yeah,
that's how that makes sense.
$700 for this PS5 Pro. Now it's also a discless version, so if you'd like to be able to use discs in it, you have to buy.
Wait. I started off at 400, right?
Yeah. So it's actually 780 if you want to have a disc drive.
The discless version of the PS4 the PS5 was how much?
Was $400.
Was for
and the disc normal version was $500. Now this PS5 Pro is $700. Also worth noting is that it doesn't even come with a vertical stand, as they mentioned in the little promotional image. You have to buy the $30 vertical stand if you want it to stand up straight. People are not happy. $700.
The thing that comes with the PS5?
I don't know if the regular ones come with the vertical stand, do they?
Because my PS5 is standing up. I didn't buy any accessories.
Well, they took that out of the box too.
It's $30.
Yeah, it's $30
it's this little disc thing that it just slides on.
So $810 total if you want all of that. Anyway, though, it's $700. People are not happy because we're getting what seem to kind of be modest gains in performance for people who are really into that, but they're charging $700 for this. Thoughts?
That's crazy because I remember reading very recently that the PS5 controller just went up in price too.
Oh, did it? I didn't know.
Yeah, they kind of just pushed up the price of the PS5 controller.
So we talked about this a couple weeks ago on the podcast, or maybe even like last week, was it? $700 for this thing. You buying? I know when we talked about it, you said you probably would not get it, but that you would maybe consider it.
So consideration has been made. I am not buying it.
Yeah. Going into this, I'm going to be completely honest. I was curious to see how high they thought they could get away with for this thing. Because I just think it is mind-boggling that they are charging $700 for this. I can't imagine how they came to that number. It really doesn't seem drastically different as a console. Even visually, it doesn't look very much different. Now, I have my hunches. I think my little tinfoil hat theory is that this is all just like a test. Just to see, like, okay, if we price something at $700, who will buy it? I think their sales projections are probably pretty modest, and they're willing to be pleasantly surprised as they find out that maybe more people than they expected are willing to pay this much money for this thing. And it tells them that, like, okay, people are willing to pay like $700 for a game console. I think it's highway robbery, but I think that there unfortunately are some people who probably will buy this, and it's crazy to me.
There is precedence for this price point.
Okay.
When the PS5 first came out and nobody could get copies of it, the scalpers online
they were selling it
were pushing them for $700+. And they were selling them at that price point. So you could argue that Sony would not want to price lower than what they were being scalped for because they know people were willing and able to buy those scalped PS5s before.
You know what's interesting about the PlayStation? Okay, well, first of all, let's talk a little bit more about the video, and then I'll get into some other thoughts I have about it. So in the video, they were talking about how, like, right now on the PS5, typically you have to split your games between, like, a performance mode and a fidelity mode. Fidelity mode is usually, like, the maximum graphics that the game can, like, do, but it runs usually at 30 FPS. Whereas, like, performance mode usually targets 60 FPS, but with some compromises to graphics and stuff on screen and all that, resolution, whatever. Just a really quick question. Do you prefer to play your games in fidelity mode or performance mode?
Fidelity.
Fidelity mode, yeah. I tend to as well. I'm not very bothered by like 30 FPS games.
Like if I want top tier performance in a game, I'm playing on PC.
Yeah, so there's that. The games that they showed were Ratchet and Clank, whatever. What was the?
Couldn't tell you.
I forget the subtitle.
Some innuendo, I'm sure.
Yeah. There's like Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart, and Spider-Man 2. That's the one that's on PS5, right?
Yeah.
PS4, PS5. And then also like The Last of Us HD Remastered Deluxe Mega Edition, whatever it is. And I already, just out the gate, and then they went on to show more games and like list out more games that are going to have like pro patches to improve their performance. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was one of them, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But this was like a hardware showcase, not a software showcase. And I think that a lot of people might have been softened a bit if there were actually like new games shown here. But it's sort of a weird message to see like, okay, the Spider-Man game from like 3 years ago and the Ratchet and Clank game from 3 years ago can now run a little better. I guess guys, like delete your save file and just replay them. Like I don't know.
Those shitty games we sold you that didn't run that well. Now you can play them again and they'll run better. Just send us another $700 to play the games you've already played.
A little better, yeah. A little higher frame rate, a little more fidelity.
When you think about, because they didn't announce any new software, the value proposition there is insane. $700 to play what you've already played better.
Yeah, it's there's that. I still think this price tag thing is just so wild. Like, I think they are partly trying to see like what can they get away with, like what literally will people pay. And someone will, because I've seen friends, I know people. I have a cousin who like he's been like chomping at the bit for this PS5 Pro and just resigned himself to like he's buying it no matter how much it costs. So
that's a horrible mindset to be in.
And we know people like that. Like everybody kind of has that friend, and I think that the PlayStation 5 and the public sort of zeitgeist has almost become this weird. Like when it was released in 2020, it's got this weird not luxury association with it, but like it's like the cool thing to have. Yeah. Like, people were chasing after it and there was scalping. It's like
people were getting robbed from PS5.
People were getting sent rice in their, did you see, there were stories about
scams,
that. Yeah, like
the
scams. Resells. And then you can tell because like, when you buy a PS5, you keep the box. There was always like some unspoken,
I kept my box.
Unspoken reason why like you keep the box. And
I kept that box empty, sitting next to the PS5 for years.
It's a thing. Yeah, it's just like it's a thing. Like, and it seems like there's a kind of this weird star power that the PlayStation brand has that like Xbox doesn't really have. Nintendo's not associated with that because they're never known as the expensive luxury thing. It's always kind of the family console.
I did see a video on social media, I think literally yesterday, of a guy buying a PS5, and I don't know what his situation was, but that PS5 was everything to him. He cradled it, he kissed it, he jumped for joy. He and the guy who sold him the PS5 embraced in a hug. It just meant everything to him.
Well, so that's kind of the thing, is that people will move heaven and earth to get like, I remember like in 2020 when the new PS5 came out, like there were people who, might otherwise live in poverty. They might not really be financially stable enough to responsibly buy this, but they will because there's just a certain prestige and like aura maybe that is associated.
I do remember I was a part of the hunting crew. Well, I didn't buy like a resold scalped one. I was one of those people that was hunting through all the retailers' websites to find
when the date is going to be there.
Where's your PS5 going to be? Let me get one. And
I sometimes think that Konami. Sometimes I think that Sony, they kind of take advantage. Like they're aware that people hold the PS5 in such high regard, and they kind of know that there are the crazies who will like get this no matter what the cost.
It's weird to think for tech, but I guess it's been the case in like cell phones for a while now. But there's FOMO when it comes to having the latest, greatest piece of gaming tech.
Yeah.
I don't know why there's FOMO, because it's not like these things ever disappear. Like you can buy PS5s today, like even though the PS5 came out years ago, the Pro is still going to be here years down the road. I don't see, and then like, the Pro will still be here when the PS6 comes out. Like, I don't know why we're rushing to buy a $700 console without a clear need scenario here.
Yeah, like there's not, because kind of from what I'm seeing, it's like there aren't new games for it. Any new game that comes out still has to play on your PS5. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, and this isn't even a new console. It is an upgraded, like mid-gen refresh kind of upgraded one, but like it is not a PS6.
Because we had a different scenario when the PS5 came out, and it was hard to get, but it was fine because all games coming out at the time were on PS4 and PS5. So you could take solace in your PS4 because you could still play the latest releases on there. And, you know, we've now entered the age where, you know, they're not making games for PS4 and PS5 as much. I know some games still come out on both, but, you know, we're slowly moving away from that. But any game on the Pro will be on the regular. That's kind of how that has to go.
It has to work, so.
I mean, maybe if you're, like, looking forward, right? Maybe Death Stranding 2, right? That game is something people are really looking forward to, and you're like, oh, I want to play this game in its very best form. So I'm gonna shell out the $700 so that when Death Stranding 2 comes out, and it'll come out eventually, then I'll be ready, right?
Do you ever think that this console generation has been a bit of a disaster?
Oh, it has been.
Like I'm kind of reflecting back on all of it, right? Just all of the news, the games, or maybe lack thereof, the scalping. It just feels like it's kind of been a mess. Like,
I don't know if it's COVID's fault, but it feels like it's COVID's fault.
Yeah, maybe we as people got crazier. I don't know. There's so many things because it's like the gaming industry has been bursting for a while. Like that sort of bubble. Studio closures, massive layoffs, game cancellations, Concord. Right, but even looking before that, you know, it feels like it all started with, no offense to this game, I know it's very good now, Cyberpunk. I feel like it started with Cyberpunk, I want to be clear. I know that Cyberpunk, they have, you know, picked up the pieces. It's good now. They've done the best they can. They made really good DLCs. I get that, but I'm just saying, like, it feels like that was like the catalyst of just games that came out like unfinished and. There were games long before that came out unfinished. I get it. I know someone's going, no, it wasn't the first one.
No, CD Projekt Red is the arbiter of this.
It just feels like that was like the story, like the headline. And then from there, it just felt like these new consoles don't have new games. New games come out unfinished. This weird live service, like, you know, overabundance of live service games, studio closures. Like, it's just... And then, like, I even thought from the beginning that, like, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, like, came out a year too early. They came out and there, like, weren't really games on them.
There weren't.
It's just, and then there's, like, the scalping, and it just, and now he has this, like, $700. It's just this amalgamation of everything. Sorry, go ahead.
This generation, I think, is cursed.
I think so, too.
I call it the COVID curse. I think the generation is cursed, and the only ones who knew about it was Nintendo. Nintendo skipped this generation, and Nintendo Switch has been their flagship for a minute. Yeah. Before the PS5 and the Xbox Series, whatever you want to call it, Nintendo sniffed out that this was going to be a BS generation of consoles, so they just skipped it. They said the Switch is going to have to make it, and they haven't really hurt for it. Have they gotten criticism? Yes, but the Switch is still the highest selling console, despite the fact Sony and Microsoft putting out new hardware and like. I still know people who are rocking with PS4s because they're like, I can't do this PS5 thing. It
feels like it's like not even like a real generation. Like, it's very fake. A lot of games are just on PS4 and 5 anyway.
I mean, the Xbox Series S and X, they've kind of left the conversation as far as being really a part of this generation.
All you hear about with Xbox now is just like maybe some first party title that disappoints people, or like drama around Game Pass Ultimate or something.
And now they're saying
repricing
that,
it, or
you know, we want to be a software company. We don't want to be a hardware company.
Now that there's just that implication where, like, is there even going to be a next Xbox
console? Was a cursed generation.
It feels very weird. Like, I don't even think it just doesn't feel real. And I think another big, maybe this is like more just a personal issue of mine, but I'm sure somebody can relate if you follow gaming. I think that this PS5 Pro thing is a bit of a way to not dupe, but sort of fleece people who hyper fixate on performance numbers, which has only really been a conversation in console gaming for the last like 5-ish years, where like there's this sudden fixation on like, what is the game's native resolution? What is the FPS number? Can a game be good if it is not a 60 FPS game? And like, there are conversations to be had about that. I know there are certain genres of games where 60 FPS is preferred, racing games, fighting games, and the like. But I have noticed more and more this hysteria around like just games their quality is solely based on like, does it have ray tracing? Yes, no. Does it run at 60 or 30? Does it run at native this or that?
Do you know why that is? I have a theory.
What are you thinking?
Content creators. Because the average person didn't know what any of these numbers or terms meant, let's say in 2017.
Yeah.
But we've entered into this arms race of content creation where everyone has to get their review videos out. Everyone has to have a take. Everyone's got to have something to compare. You have to be able to say this game is amazing, the best game of the year, or it's dog shit. And you have to be able to back it up with the numbers. Well, this game only runs on so and so and so and so, but this game, if you run it on this type of machine, runs at this resolution, and this game has this feature and that feature.
Yeah,
and most of that does not matter to the average gamer, but content creators have to push it at the very front of their video on their thumbnails. They have to give you a reason to hate or love this game or this console.
Yeah.
And I think people have just absorbed that.
Yeah. And now people identify, like, I know people who will go unnamed because this is a kind podcast. We believe in anonymity, who really fixate on that sort of thing. And they're almost, so I sometimes worry that like, it's made people less of gamers and more of just like, because there are people where the game comes out and it is more important what its performance specs are than the game. Like the genre's not important, the creativity's not important, the fun's not important. I would rather have no fun, but know that the game is running at 60 FPS and native 4K, even if there's nothing to do, even if even if there's not like a story or there's no modes or whatever, because like at least it's running at that resolution. I don't know if it's maybe the rise of gaming PCs has something to do with it, where like more people kind of know about PC gaming. So the idea of specs numbers is more of a part of the conversation, or like NVIDIA and graphics cards. And it's just like, I don't think that any of it's to anybody's benefit. But
look, at least for me in my PC gaming, I buy the new GPU I can afford when I can. And I just call it, and that's that. You know, I'm not going to do my benchmark tests. I'm not going to scream about what numbers I can or can't hit on my favorite games. I want to be able to hit what I can afford, and that's all that matters. And I'm going to play what's interesting.
Yeah.
If you rewind time back to gaming's early days, people weren't complaining about the specs of the games themselves. They were complaining about whether or not they were fun. Could you imagine if people were sitting there playing Pac-Man, like the graphics in this year's Pac-Man sucks. Pac-Man 3 is not a big enough upgrade over Pac-Man 2.
Exactly that.
The conversations we have now are not gaming conversations.
Yeah, exactly.
We've moved away from
talking about gaming. We're just talking about like just tech specs.
Tech specs, and we don't even really know what we're talking about.
Tech specs that are really boring. Like there's nothing all that exciting about it. You know, once you're like actually sitting down and playing the game, just this stuff it all just fades into the distance. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to, I guess, like having these conversations online with people, like arguing about what should be game of the year, or who's winning between Sony and Microsoft. Well, either way, I've got a good segue story.
Oh.
One other thing I will say, actually, though, real quick before I do. It is funny that this all comes in the wake of Astrobot getting like stellar rave reviews and people loving it, and it being like an amazing kind of PR thing for Sony.
Yep.
And then like literally like less than a week later, it's just like PS5 Pro $700.
They announced Astrobot will be playable on the PS5 Pro.
Well, it was only playable on the PS5 Pro. They're like, you have to buy this too.
Oh my gosh.
Games industry layoffs, Alec, just in case you didn't know.
Oh, wonderful.
Are not the result of corporate greed.
They're not?
And those affected should drive an Uber, says ex-Sony president.
What is happening?
Is ex-Sony president. Yeah, so ex-Sony Computer Entertainment Europe president Chris Deering does not believe recent layoffs across the games industry have been a result of corporate greed. Instead, workers who have lost their jobs should drive an Uber or go to the beach for a year until employment settles. Deering was a guest on games writer Simon Parkin's podcast, My Perfect Console, where the pair discussed games industry layoffs. I don't think it's fair to say that the resulting layoffs have been greed, said Deering. I always tried to minimize the speed at which we added staff because I always knew there would be a cycle. I didn't want to end up having the same problems that Sony did in electronics. So he acknowledged the recent layoffs at Sony, including the London studio. I remember reading about that earlier in the year. But noted, if the money isn't coming in from the consumers on the last game, it's going to be hard to justify spending the money for the next game.
It is our fault, is what he's saying.
He continued, I think it's probably very painful for the managers, but I don't think that having skill in this area of game development is going to be a lifetime of poverty or limitation. It's still where the action is, and it's like the pandemic, but now you're going to have to take a few, figure out how to get through it, drive an Uber or whatever, go off to find a cheap place to live and go to the beach for a year. But keep up with your news and keep up with it, because once you get off the train, it's much harder. So it kind of sounds as though...
Paul?
Yes.
It took everything I had not to slam my fist on the table during that last sentence. The sheer hubris and like to say that, oh, like, just go find a new place to live. Go drive an Uber for a year.
Just get a second job.
Sometimes you're gonna have a good, well-paying job, and then sometimes you won't. But don't worry, a new job will come in a year. Well, okay. How come if they have to take pay cuts, why don't you take a pay cut? Why don't you go drive an Uber for a year? Why do the people who actually make the games that put money in his pockets? Why do they have to take L's for a year so that he can continue to make money easily and consistently? Like, that's such a capitalistic statement to make.
Yeah.
I can live comfortably. You guys should ebb and flow as I decide.
These things do recover sometimes a lot faster than you might think when all is very precarious, he said. I presume people were paid some kind of decent severance package, and by the time that runs out, well, you know, that's life. So that's what he thinks. He thinks just get a little second gig job and tough it out, and maybe your jaw will come back. In February, Sony laid off 900 PlayStation employees, around 8% of its workforce, which included closing London studio and reductions at Firesprite studio. This is among many other rounds of layoffs across the industry. By May 2024 this year, over 10,000 people in the games industry had been laid off. Now that figure has risen to over 11,500. So, yeah, as people get laid off, this guy does not seem to be too terribly concerned about it. He thinks that it's fine, just pick up a little second job and you'll be all right. I also...
What's his name again?
This is Chris Deering.
Chris Deering makes me sick.
Yeah, so here's my thing about this. I don't like when it always feels like the blame has to be on, like, the customers are like to blame. Like, well, you know, we're just not buying enough stuff, and that's why, like, we're having to do layoffs. And it's like, well, you know, I don't think that's really like a fair angle to take, because you're the company that did the hiring, you're the company that makes the product. And so if you're making products that are like unfinished or aren't fun or get shut down, like, let's say, I'm not saying he's responsible for Concord, let's say.
But like, let's say he's responsible for Concord.
But like, if you're making things that people don't like, and then like those repercussions, I think, are on you. Like, I don't think that it's people's responsibility to, like, we have to buy the thing to...